Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Frequency of Love. My interview today is with Paul Selig. Paul is a noted playwright and teacher. He serves on the faculty of New York University and directs the MFA in Creative Writing program at Goddard College. He is also a clairaudient, clairvoyant, a channel, an empath, and author of 3 channeled books, I Am the Word, The Book of Love and Creation, and his latest book, The Book of Knowing and Worth, which we will be talking about today. These books are dictated by his guides, and they are, in my opinion, a no-holds-barred energetic transmission to awakening humanity to its own divine nature. Thank you so much, again, for coming in. I really appreciate it.
I'm glad to be here.
And I was saying as we were coming over that I'm really grateful for the work that you are doing to bring this to all of us. You're sort of having to travel around the country a lot and do the workshops, and traveling and the writing. And what keeps you at it?
It's a good question. I don't know some days, I mean, some days I wake up and I go, how did this become my life? It's not what I intended. But I feel fairly driven to keep showing up. I mean, I feel that my job for all of this is to show up. I can't prepare for a channeling other than to hopefully be a little bit rested. I can't prepare for a book to come through other than to clear my schedule to sit and do the sessions of dictation. So my job is to be present, and what's begun to happen, which is interesting to me because I was doing this for many years in my living room with a very small group of people, in attendance who would just come and we'd sit and I'd listen and we'd work with the energy that would come through. What's so funny is now I'm being asked to do the same thing sort of all over the place, and I'm showing up where I'm asked. So that's been the way this whole thing has happened. There's been a really organic evolution to this work getting out into the world, and very, very little of it has been planned by me.
Well, has it changed you dramatically or in any way, shape, or form? Because I know you are a student also of this work.
Yeah, I am. I'm not the best student of the work, and I'm the first one to say that. And I think if I were actually sitting down and really doing the teachings as they were written, I'd probably be having an even better experience in my life right now. But has my life changed? Yeah, it's changed radically.
Yeah.
I'm 100 pounds lighter than I used to be. I used to be a 4-pack-a-day smoker. I mean, my body's changed, but the way that I exist in the world has changed. I'm fundamentally still very much the man I've been. I'm, a little shy and a little pensive, and I worry too much, and all of the things that I've always been. But I'm operating at a much different level, and my life has begun to reflect that. And very much that's been the teaching of the guides. When you do this work, you begin to lift your consciousness, and consequently your vibration changes, and what you call to you in terms of your physical reality begins to transform as well. So in some ways, I'm living a life now that I couldn't have imagined. I don't understand it some days. I don't know why. I still like the comfort of a classroom. I like being at NYU. I like running my graduate program. But I also like showing up and being participatory to this sort of amazing thing that happens when the guides come through with this sort of very palpable energy that people can feel, and people seem to be changed by it. And that's very exciting for me to be a part of.
Well, I find this incredible news. I mean, it's a fantastic time for us to be alive. I feel like we're on the brink of something enormously hopeful for humanity and for us individually, and that we are, basically they're talking about aligning ourselves to our true identity, which I've always resonated with because I've sort of felt like, we're sort of lost and separate, and they're talking about now is the time. And here's the opportunity, and you can have this. And to me, it's a very, very powerful book.
Thank you. I like this book. It speaks to where I am in my own growth. The idea of claiming worth is a huge one, and it's actually very fundamental. And, they say when they lecture through me, and it's all over the new book, you are who you say you are. And what aspect of yourself are you operating from? So if I'm operating from my sense of limited self, I'm the shy guy who doesn't like to go to parties, which is, what I could claim, I consequently call those things to me. When you start to claim your own truth or your divine worth, which is, we're all born, we all have a right to be here. And as the guides would say, we're all aspects of the Creator. When you begin to sort of operate from that sense of knowing, your life begins to change. And there's a domino effect here because you really can't claim to be this or know yourself as this without knowing that it's true for everybody else. And that's the big challenge, It's a nice, comfortable way to be, to say, okay, here I am, I'm the light. But my guides would say again and again, you can't be the light and claim another in darkness. You can't do it. It's just not possible.
Right. They do emphasize that. They repeat that often. You are your brother's keeper. The Creator is in everyone and everything. And that is a challenge to look at the world like that. But we can start to get used to it. They had some interesting comment about if you sort of see evil in someone, or if you can't see God in someone. And now I don't remember exactly what that comment was, but they're sort of saying you're aligning yourself with the evil rather than with God.
Yeah.
And I think we just have to be filled with grace when we look at situations that we think are terrible and say, well, God is in that, and there's a chance for that to transform. That's the best chance for it to transform if we see it as filled with the Creator.
It sounds right to me. I mean, I don't remember the quotes either. And for people that don't know my work, I don't really write these books. I sit down, I close my eyes. There's a recorder, a CD recorder on. There's this wonderful woman, Victoria Nelson, on the phone in Berkeley, and my dog's in my lap. I press play, I close my eyes, and the books are dictated, and the unedited transcriptions of those channeling sessions become the books. The editing is so minimal as not even to be there. It's usually when I get interrupted and I curse that I don't include, the cursing. But pretty much it's a straightforward thing. So, the quotes in the book are always, I always go, oh, did they say that? That sounds great. Did they really say that? But what I think is true, and if I can remember sort of how they've done this in lecture, they do say that, when you are aligned to something, you're in co-resonance with it. And very often what we're doing is we're empowering the very things that we say we don't want by giving them our focus. Now, it's not to negate that something is there, but one of the examples my guides have been giving when they teach, and I don't know if this is in the book or not, they say, none of you can really conceive of a planet without war. And so constantly, consequently, you're always sort of replicating war because you expect it to be there. Until you begin to lift your consciousness above that place, you're going to continue to create what you've had. And I think that that's a challenge. I don't know that I'm there yet. But they do say, I suppose, if I'm focusing on the negative in somebody else, I'm in agreement with the negative. My guides say, everything around us, we're in agreement with at one level or another because it exists. And they say what you're in agreement with, you shake hands with, or you're in co-resonance with. They use the word accord. They say ACCORD or ACHORD as in a piano, as in co-resonance. And they say if there's something in your reality that's not working, stop holding on to it. Stop co-resonating, stop shaking hands with it and agreeing with it. And very often the thing that we condemn is the thing that we're agreeing with. We're affirming its presence in the world as opposed to working on lifting above it to a place where something higher could be created. I'm not saying to negate the existence of something. I don't think it's about denial. I do think it's looking to the higher solution.
Well, that is very interesting, the way that they talk about that, because I think that there are plenty of people who would say, well, I'm not in agreement with war. I don't want to go to war. I want us to be peaceful. And I think getting to that place, or those of us who think like that might think, well, we're in the minority, so we don't have any control over this situation. But are there some sort of steps to? I
don't know, Matt. There must be if they're talking about it. I'm the wrong guy to ask. I don't know if I can go into channel in your interview, but it's been known to happen before. But I mean, there was a point, I think, when the guides were saying, when the banks were doing all this awful stuff, and, the guides did a lecture, and they said, you all say you hate the banks, but you're still putting your money in them. You're investing in them. You're empowering the very structures that you say you don't want. And you have to understand that you're really participatory to your reality. You really are.
Right.
And, I am just as much as anybody else is. I'm very aware of that. What's the way beyond that? I hear to know that there's something higher, to claim it, to call it into being, to call it into being. Unless you're willing to do this, unless you're willing to do this, to lift yourself to a new octave, a new possibility, a new possibility. You will not claim the new. You will not claim the new. You will get what you have had, and what you have had is what you see, and what you have had is what you see. If you don't believe that something else can be claimed, you won't even bother. You won't even bother, period. And they're saying period.
Well, can we create new structures like, let's say, for example, a bank? Do you just take your money out of there and just – until a new structure comes along, what is it that we can do?
You're saying, but come along essentially means that somebody's going to hand it to us. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
And I think that they're talking about a participatory reality. I'm not knocking the banks. My money's in the bank. I don't want to leave it under my mattress. What if the house burns down?
Right.
You hear these stories. So it's not about that. But I do think, and I think the illustration was brought forth when you said, what about these things that we don't like? And are we sort of aligning to them with our dislike? And I suppose in some way, I suppose we are. It's about co-resonance. I can ask about the banks. They're saying you put your money where you want, but don't condemn the structure. But don't condemn the structure that you're adhering to, You're condemning a structure and still participating in it. So you're claiming it. So you're claiming it in its negativity. There's nothing wrong with the bank if you align to the good bank. If you align to the good bank, the possibilities in the bank, may be fine. But if you want the negative bank, and that expression, you can have that too. You can have that too, period, in the same period.
Got it. So, and in my sense is that, basically what that they say that this text is the anchoring of the Christ vibration as you is the work of this text. To me that's really profound and magnificent. Yeah. And it seems to me that comes first, because once you are in that vibration, you're creating from that space with love and truth and wisdom and all this.
Yeah. I think that's the answer, and I think that everything that I would think of to fix everything is still coming out of my consciousness at the level that created all the old stuff. So looking to fix it at that level. My guides don't talk about fixing things; they never have. They talk about transforming things. Yeah. But they do say that when you're aligned to that level of consciousness, your world essentially has to begin to reflect that. And this is a collective effort. They say, we're creating individually and collectively. It's not just the little person saying, I made this happen. It's where we're all engaged in the world that we live in. So they're teaching from the very beginning, I have to say, they've been really consistent, is the divine as you. The first book, I Am the Word, they said was a teaching of embodiment. It was the teaching of sort of bringing the energy in. And the books work as energy transmissions on the reader. And it's interesting, if you go to Amazon and you read the reviews, people are saying, oh my God, I'm reading this book and my body's vibrating. I'm reading the book and I'm seeing energy. I don't know what the hell's happening. It's exciting, but that's what they said would be the case with the books. So the first book was about embodiment. The second book in many ways is a manual. The Book of Love and Creation is sort of a manual for operating. And this book, the Book of Knowing and Worth, in a lot of ways, they say it's the teaching of incarnation. It's the being of it. It's the being of your divine self. And they work with the claim in this book as well. I know who I am. I know what I am. I know how I serve, which they say really does support us in anchoring the frequency into present time in a way that we can begin to work with. So it's productive. I think the interesting thing about the teachings that are coming through is they're really not that amorphous. They're also not that feel good. They require work. This isn't just, read a book and say an affirmation and things are going to be rosy. It's very much about taking responsibility for how we exist in the world, how we treat one another, and what we might begin to create from this higher octave. But I think the thing is, and you nailed it, is when you are operating as the divine self, my guides would say that the divine self actually calls to herself the requirements that she needs to exist in. You see, the personality self is very moored in history. Like, to be successful means X, Y, and Z because we were trained to think that. So we've created these little frames for how to live our lives based on what we were taught. But these are limited frames, and the divine self or the higher self, or as my guides often say, the Christ itself, knows infinitely more. And when that aspect of you is operating in full expression, it's actually doing the work.
Do you get the sense that the Christ consciousness sort of becomes the commander? That's kind of the sense I got.
It's a big deal, yeah. That's kind of how I'm understanding it. And it was sort of a revelatory teaching for me when I started to get it. And I got to say, I'm not there yet.
Right.
But I will say that when the first time they said it, it was in a workshop I think I was teaching in in Santa Fe or something, and they came out with this thing, and I went, what the hell is this about? But they said, to the extent, and I'm going to have to paraphrase it, they say, it's not about you becoming your divine self, because that still puts the smaller self in command of the show. Mm-hmm. Like today, I'm going to be my higher self. Who's deciding that? It's the Christ or the divine manifesting and operating as you. And that's the difference. So the example they gave me was, you think you're holding the glass, but the glass is holding you. Mm-hmm. So it really is sort of moving into a level of alignment where this other thing becomes possible.
Do you get any sort of people asking who are saying, well, I'm Buddhist or I don't believe in, Jesus. I mean, what is it about the Christ consciousness and not a different kind of consciousness?
The language that they work with is moored in the Judeo-Christian tradition. I don't think that they're necessarily using it in ways that we would think.
Yeah.
So they define all these things in their own way. And, their definition of the Christ, and they do this in every book and they spell it out, their definition of the Christ is the aspect of the Creator that can be materialized in physical form, that can be known in physical form. They say that Jesus, as a teacher, as the Christ, Jesus became the Christ. He realized that level of consciousness, and I think they probably say that others have as well. But that's a level of attainment. It's a level of it's sort of it's an octave or a frequency that you move into accord with. That's my understanding of how they teach it. But they say that there's an aspect of the divine instilled in everybody, that spark. And, once that spark is activated, once that part of you is present, its work is to really be realized in fullness through our expression. Mm-hmm. When my guides say, I know who I am, I know what I am, I know how I serve, they usually sort of explain it. I know who I am as an aspect of the divine. I know what I am in this embodiment, in this incarnation, in this world that I'm living in. I mean, in these relationships, in these jobs, whatever. I know what I am as I'm experienced here, and how I serve, how each one serves, they say, is how we're expressed at this level of consciousness. So we tend to mistake it to mean, okay, I'm going to go be of service today. I'm going to go be a nurse. I'm going to go be of service today. I'm going to go feed the poor. And those are wonderful things to do. But what they would actually say, I think, is when you're truly expressed at that level, you cannot not be of service. You have to be, because that's the job of being. And you, whoever you are, in your most realized potential, is going to be a gift to the world, doing whatever it is you came here to do. It doesn't have to look like we were taught. It should look at. That's, again, the ego saying success looks a certain way, service looks a certain way. When I was first opening up spiritually, I was 25 years old, and I used to go sit up on this roof of this apartment, this building that I'd had this sort of experience, sort of a spiritual experience at. And I had this image of myself, at my age, wearing all white with long hair flowing down my back, this was the 80s, wearing a crystal. I'm doing Tai Chi. I never learned Tai Chi. I don't own any crystals. I don't have any hair. The reality, frankly, is much more interesting than I would have ever imagined. I didn't even know if I believed in it, I thought it was crazy. And who the hell thought this would happen? I didn't.
I love that. I have a friend who channels, and he's like, "What? How did this happen?" You know, and it's very awkward at first.
Yeah.
There's two things that occurred to me that are very important for us now that they're saying. One is that the plane is shifting, which is going to help us rise into this Christ consciousness. What do they mean by that?
I don't really know. I mean, I know other people talk about this kind of thing, and my guides do as well, but they don't come with science. Other people are saying, all this other stuff. And I've heard, talk about dimensional shift, What they're saying, and my understanding is that there's a whole lot less resistance than there used to be. So what's possible now didn't used to be possible. Essentially we're dealing with a finer frequency. And I'm aware of this. When I was first doing my groups in my apartment, it would take months for people to sort of feel the energy or whatever. Now it takes about a minute in a group. It's kaboom. And, it's amazing. People are seeing auras, are doing this. People are opening up right and left. And I think that that's what they're talking about, that the possibilities here now are very, very present, perhaps because there's less density that we're having to work through. And there's also a level of conversation happening, I think, that allows for this,
Oh, yes.
If I can come out of the closet as a college teacher, and somebody who, I'm a Yaley, all of these sort of things that, make me safer for some people, maybe that gives permission for somebody else to do. You know what I mean? And that's fine, I think we're all here to wake up to our true selves in whatever way that means. I don't think it has to be through the teachings that my guides are giving. I think that there's many, many, many ways to engage. God forbid, these books were the only way people could sort of, learn to be in resonance with their truth.
Right.
There's got to be ways in many, many cultures. And the guides say that, they say that these books, the teachings are coming through different mediums and different cultures in ways that are appropriate to that readership or to that audience.
Yeah.
And I hope that's the case.
Yeah.